are still lots of movements to be started in the world, and this next presentation is about a subject that gets hardly any attention at all. It's the side of parent-child relationships that's rarely talked about. So, please, here to elaborate, welcome Christina Burks.
Hey everyone. So what do you think of when you hear the term domestic violence? Typically, you think of a man beating on his girlfriend, or a woman beating on her husband, or what we've all heard, a child being abused by their parent. My name is Christina Lobertini-Burks, and I'm here to talk to you about a more invisible form of domestic violence, and that's parental domestic violence. Parental domestic violence is where a parent is being abused by their child, and it spreads across the entire abuse scale, whether that is financial, verbal, physical, you name it, that's basically what it is. Parental domestic violence is not just an out-of-control tantrum. It is about control. It is about control and power over the victim or parent. Parental domestic violence is an increasing form of domestic violence, and it is being noticed on a global scale. In the UK, in 2003, Parentline Plus, the UK's hotline, reported that a quarter of their calls were from parents who were being abused. And of those quarter calls, 80% were reported that violence or aggression was directed towards the mother. In Australia, in 2012, it was reported that 20% of all domestic violence cases were parental domestic violence cases. In the United States, we like to think of ourselves as a great power country, with people coming to us from all over the world for a better life and to be happier, when really, we don't like to see what's below the surface. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, in 2010, a man shot his father in the back of the head, which killed him. He also shot his mother 3 times, but thankfully she survived. He was found psychologically incompetent to stand trial until January of 2012, and he pled guilty to both crimes. His mother said that even though he had tried to kill her and had killed her husband, that she still loved her son and wanted him to receive psychological aid while in prison. He received a 38-year sentence. However, after 32 years, he can receive parole. There's a long history of unreported violence that targeted both parents. In 2012, a man brutally beat his mother to death with a baseball bat. He was found competent to stand trial and pled innocent to the crime. His mother, in the remaining months of her life, wrote 2 letters to prosecutors and a judge stating that she feared for her life and would not testify against her son because she was afraid of him. She also lived with a lock on her bedroom door because she was terrified of her son. This is the woman from the Springfield case. Not only was this case close to home for many of us, but for me, this case was very personal because this woman was my grandmother. And my grandmother was my best friend. In fact, the night before she died, she called me and my sister to tell us how proud of us she was, how much she loved us both, and how beautiful she thought we both were. I told my grandma that the next day I had a band concert, so of course, like always, Grandma promised to be there. And the next day I knew something was wrong because at my band concert, Grandma wasn't there. And I tried to call her and I texted her and I got no answer. And I knew something was wrong because Grandma wasn't the type of person to promise something and not show up without an excuse. I knew that this event impacted me and my family, but what I didn't know was that it impacted so many other people. When I went back to school, I found out that not only were my friends impacted, but all of my teachers were as well. And at my grandmother's funeral, people that she had worked with over the years, even before I was born, came to say goodbye to her. In fact, one coworker came all the way from Los Angeles to pay his respects and say goodbye. This showed me that not only are a select group of people impacted by an event like this, but an entire community was impacted by something we typically think only impacts a small number of people. I want to give you the hotline for the United States. As I mentioned before, places like the UK and Australia have one, and for the United States, there is none. Thank you.